In this video, we're going to talk about installing and creating your very first Python program. Now, you're going to need Python, of course, because that's the programming language that this series focuses on, and an IDE. Now, an IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Now, for this series, for doing and learning Python, we're going to use PyCharm. Let's head over to these websites and download Python and the IDE to run our Python code. And the first stop on our Python journey is going to head over to the python.org website. Once you get there, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. You're going to hover over Downloads, and you're going to download Python, the newest version for Windows. Once that's done downloading, go ahead and open the install file, and you'll see this right here. We're going to add python.exe to path. We'll talk about what that means later on, and we're going to click Install Now. Once you start installing, it's going to get everything that you need to get Python up and running so you can write your first Python program. And just in a few moments later, you'll have, hopefully this message setup was successful. Now you can go ahead and start using Python right away in the command prompt. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So in your command prompt to launch Python or to write your Python code, you simply type in py, and that will bring up Python code. And you can write some code here. We'll simply write a hello world, and we'll take a look at what that looks like, and it outputs hello world. But this is not an integrated development environment that looks nice. Yes, it's able to interpret our Python code that we write, but it just doesn't look nice. And if we start writing extensive programs, our code's going to be very hard to read. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to a website and download the IDE PyCharm. Let's head that way now. And our second step is to head over to jetbrains.com. You can go right here. I'll put this inside the comments so you can link directly to it. JetBrains is a great company. Almost 16 million people use their tools, so they definitely know what they're doing and definitely trusted. When you look at PyCharm, you'll see a professional and community edition. We want the community edition because it's not going to charge us any money. So we're simply going to hit download. We're going to see the same thing that we saw for when we downloaded Python. It's going to take a couple more minutes to download because it is a little larger. So let's go ahead and skip ahead to that install screen. And the second stop is to head over to jetbrains.com/PyCharm download section equals Windows. I'm going to put that down in the description so you can link directly to it. Once you do that, you'll see this screen and you'll see the professional and the community. And what we want is the community edition because it's free. It's not going to cost us any money. A great way to learn Python. And now this file is a little over 400 megabytes, so it's going to take a little while to download. So we're going to skip ahead so you can see the screen to install it. We'll check off a few options, and then we'll start installing it. So let's go ahead and fast forward to that. Within a few minutes, it'll be done. Go ahead and click on Next, click Next. And then what we're going to do is, if you want a desktop shortcut, you can have one. I don't want one because my desktop looks like a bomb went off. I'm going to create the associations for the .py, that's our Python folders, and I'm going to add a bin folder to the path. Go ahead and click Next. Click Install, and then it's going to go ahead and install all the everything you need to get Python up and running in a nice looking integrated development environment. Now this is going to take a few moments or minutes to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip ahead to show you the next screen that you're going to see. Once it's done installing, you're going to see this screen. It's going to let you know you need to go ahead and restart your computer to finish the installation. So with solid state drives, it doesn't take long for the computer to restart. So we're going to go ahead, restart the computer, and we'll catch back up in a moment. And now that we have PyCharm installed, running, we can go ahead and take a look at writing our very first program. We're going to click on New Project. This is going to start a new Python project. We're calling ours Hello World. So that's what I typed in, and you'll see it show up, and you'll see the location of where it's located as well. This is nice because instead of having just a bunch of Python files in one folder. You can create a separate folder for each project, which makes it easy to find and easy to launch. We have our base interpreter. What does that mean? Our interpreter is what actually takes a look at our Python code and will convert it and actually run it. Without the interpreter, you're not going to be able to run any Python code. Once you have that, you're going to go ahead and you're going to click Create. And then now it's going to create the virtual environment so we can actually create our first Python project. So it's going to go ahead and start. And this is what we have. So here we have, it has a sample Python script. Press Shift plus F10 to execute it or replace it with your code. Double Shift to search everywhere for classes, files, tool windows, actions, settings. Here we have a couple methods. Here this prints hi followed by name, and then we have a breakpoint which will stop our program. So breakpoints can come in handy if you're testing variables, but we'll get into all that later on. It says press the green button in the gutter to run the script, and that is the actual which will run your code. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete all this and write our own Python code in our first program. So let's skip ahead and do that. One of the first things you need to learn how to do is what is known as comments. And we do that with a £sign or a hashtag symbol. Depending, if you grew up around the time I did, we call these £signs. If you grew up much later, you call them hashtags. So it doesn't really matter what you call them. What you need to know is that these are for comments. They don't make your program work. They don't make your program not work. It doesn't matter what you type in. It's not going to affect your code one way or the other. So this is our first program. You may hear people talk about adding documentation to their code or checking the documentation. What that means is we're checking the comments inside the source code to see or learn about what the code actually does. All right, let's go ahead and let's write our first program. So we're going to print. What this does is it outputs text to the terminal. What we want to do is we want to use double quotes, hello world, and that will output hello world. Now I said double quotes. You can also use single quotes. So I could do this again with single quotes, hello world. And Python is case sensitive. So you got to use a lowercase p. And then I want to do the same thing again, but I can also use, instead of double quotes and single quotes, I can use triple quotes, hello world. And when we run this, it will output hello world 3 times. So let's go ahead and run it. And we can see it outputs hello world 3 times. So you may be asking, well, which one do I use? Do I use double quotes? Do I use single quotes? Or do I use triple quotes? It doesn't really matter which one you use as long as you are consistent. Now, I prefer to use double quotes specifically for this reason. I may say, Susan's violin. And I can do that because I have a set of double quotes. If I use singular quotes and I do singular quotes, Susan's violin, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all because it's recognizing those single quotes as closing the text. It doesn't matter which you use. You should pick one and you should be consistent with it. But do know that single, double, and triple quotes are something that Python offers. So let's get back to our hello world now that you have learned about the different types of quotation marks. So print hello world. Now we just have it one time. But what if we wanted to say somebody's name? Well, for that, we could simply type in the name, or we can create a variable. And that's what we're going to do here. Now, there are different variable data types. You need to be familiar with them because you may need to do some conversions later on for this one. We're going to create a basic string variable. To make a variable in Python, you don't need to declare the data type. You simply give it a value and it'll determine what data type it should be. So when I type in computer science It recognizes that as alphanumeric characters, which means A to Z, both uppercase, lowercase, the numbers 0 to 9, and or special characters such as the exclamation mark, the @ sign, the ampersand, percent sign, and so on. So this is a string. Now, if I type in hello name, we're going to get what's called a syntax error. There's an error here. I'm trying to combine hello with the variable name, but I have to let Python know I'm trying to do that. And we do that with a plus symbol. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to run my code, and it should say hello, and then whatever is being stored in name. What's being stored there? Herb Computer Science. We run our code, and it says hello, Herb Computer Science. Well, that's well and dandy. But what if I want the user to input their name? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do that. Here we have a name variable. So I can do name equals input. And I can say, please enter your name. So I'm going to put a colon. I'm going to spell name correctly as well. And I'm going to put a space there. Now notice Python is letting us know, hey, you already have a name variable and there's already a value inside of it. It's letting us know that if we proceed with this code, we're going to overwrite whatever is stored in name. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see how it works. So we're going to run our code. I'm going to type in, down in my terminal, herb comp sci. Don't want to type in the same thing, because then I won't know what it's doing. I hit enter, hello herb comp sci. So what happens is, Python runs line by line. It does this line first, which creates a name variable and stores herb computer science. On the next line of code, right down here, we're overriding what already exists inside the variable name. Now, you don't have to create a variable before you use it in regards to user input. For example, and get rid of this line right here. And I'm telling Python, okay, I'm creating name, and I'm going to store in there whatever the user inputs. So let's go ahead, let's run this program again. So enter your name. So I'm going to type in herb computer sci, something completely different, and it will say hello, and then whatever's been inputted into name. As soon as I hit enter, it's going to store it inside the name string variable. I hit enter, hello herb computer sci. So in your first program, you learned a lot. You learned how to do comments for documentation. You learned how to use the print method and output text. You learned how to create a simple string variable that holds a pre-existing value. You also learned how to take input from the user. Hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next Python video.